Hey, everybody. It's Tuesday.
And welcome to
This
this
thing.
week's edition of Hook, Line, and Striker.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Emily, and thanks for being here with us tonight. Um, Josh was kind of laughing because, we were talking about the last few weeks that the StreamYard system has been doing up some updates and our screen flash. So it looks like we are still broadcasting and everything looks normal. But, to those of you who are here with us, let us know that you are here so I know that you can hear us. That would be awesome. But either way, I always like to ask, what you're fishing for and how that's going. I guess we always like to give a little bit of a fishing report. So how's that been going for us this week?
Well, after our 1,000-mile round trip of the Midwest, we were talking last week. We were going to do some fishing in Minnesota, and that didn't really happen. We showed up, and it was a lot of shallow water.
Well, and we showed up and we had a pop-up camper. We had 2 days. We were super excited, and we were on our way and found out that there was possibilities of not just rain, but tornadoes in the area. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not putting a pop-up in a tornado. That just does not sound like fun. So we kind of detoured a few different times, and that's how things go.
Right.
But it was a great time. We did get the pop-up up and made it all the way home, and we did get fishing.
Got home Sunday, took a nap, went out Monday, forgot our graphs. And we went out fishing.
That's on me.
But we got out fishing. We did really well. We used our AquaView and we used our polarized glasses, and we even threw out a buoy.
Well, and we used our memory from where we've been catching fish prior to this. So, that's always an interesting time. Yeah. Caught a few crappies trolling, but we found most of the bluegills in deeper brush.
Yeah. They were hungry and they were eating big baits, and it was super fun.
That's true. So, if you guys have a fishing report, let us know kind of where you're at or what you're fishing for, or, what the fish are biting on, because I'm always interested in that. For us, I think it was a white little plastic bait profile. Used a bunch of those. So let us know, I guess, what you're doing for that. But otherwise, let's fast forward and bring in our guest here. So welcome to the show, Matt Stefan.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So the first question is always, for somebody who doesn't know you, tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm a professional touring bass angler. I grew up in the Chicago area, lived there until I was about 30 years old, and then I moved up to the central Wisconsin area here in Stevens Point. And I used to work a corporate job in the financial world, and I've always fished tournaments, but kind of worked my way up to the point where I had an opportunity to get into the FLW tour, which is a professional level circuit. And I did that with my corporate job for, I'm going to say about 4 years. And I got to the point where I was like, man, I got to make a decision here, because the corporate job is a really good job, but it's really difficult to do when I'm gone for 8 or 9 weeks out of the year. And they weren't super happy with me being gone as much as I was. And I didn't feel like my fishing was as good as it could be because I was dealing with a corporate job back home. So I did what any logical person did, and I gave up the great corporate job to pursue a career in the fishing world. And it kind of put the wheels in motion, moved up to Wisconsin at that point. I do guide a little bit, but primarily what I am is a tournament angler. My primary source of income is through tournament winnings as well as sponsor deals. And I've been doing the fishing at the professional level for 11 years. And since I quit my corporate job, the 3 years while I was working my corporate job, I was right in the middle of the pack every year. I was in the 70s and 80s out of 160 anglers. And since then, the last 8 years, I've been in the top 41 in points and made the championship 7 of those 8 years. The 1 year I didn't do it, I finished, I think, 37th out of 160 some. And it was the only time in the history of FLW, at the time FLW, that they did not take 39 or more anglers. So I feel like that was a good enough year to make the championship, but I did not actually qualify. So it's 7 of the last 8 years. And we just wrapped up our championship event, which was over in La Crosse, which was really nice because normally I'm traveling 1,000 miles like you guys are to wherever down south where I need to go. And to have a tournament at our championship event up in La Crosse was really, really nice. So we wrapped that up. I think I was 14th, 15th, maybe. The top 50 guys made that. So it was a decent showing, but I would have liked to have done a little bit better. But yeah, that's my primary job at this point. I have been getting into YouTube quite a bit this year. So I've spent a substantial amount of time trying to build my Matt Stefan Fishing YouTube channel. But yeah, what I do, everything I do at this point is all geared around fishing, whether it's tournaments, guiding, or trying to teach people how to catch fish.
Well, and what a really unique position for you to have been in. Everyone always talks about like follow your dreams, and it's kind of hard to in some cases choose a dream. So I mean, it's cool to hear somebody with a story. You had a great job, but you had a great fishing career, and to be in the position to choose like that. I mean, that is something that's really awesome. I don't know.
It's one of those things. So my corporate job, I worked at the Chicago Board of Trade in Chicago, which was then purchased by the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. I was a financial investigator. So I reviewed trade activity looking for fraud. And I really loved the job. Like I loved knowing that I was helping people. And I did it for 12 years. But I got to the point where I was more of a management role, which kind of took me out of doing the grunt work per se. But it was the worst part about the job, guys, was I would get on the train, the Metro train, and ride that in to downtown with the same people every day, sitting in the same seats. You'd get off. I used to call us drones or worker bees. It was everyone get off the train and just walk down the sidewalk in one mass in one direction. And then at the end of the day, it was the same group of people coming back to the train and getting on the same car. It was just that Groundhog's Day over and over and over. And all I was thinking about was fishing all the time. And tournament fishing is my passion. And I wanted to make it, I wanted to pursue it. I mean, that's what makes me happy. And I was one day where I got home from work. It was a really rough day. And my wife is a chiropractor. She got home and she had a really rough day. She was working in another doctor's clinic. And we both were like, we're not happy. So we, literally went to dinner that night and on a napkin it sounds like a movie. On a napkin, we started writing our goals and what we wanted out of life. And she wanted her own little clinic, that she could run. And I wanted to pursue fishing tournaments. And 2 years after we kind of sat down and did that, we were fully moved. She had a clinic and I was a full-time fisherman with like no sponsors. So it was kind of concerning.
That's actually really amazing, that story, along with a whole bunch of fish in there, has made today happen, so to speak.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to take a risk. You can't be afraid of failure. You just got to figure that if you fail, it's just going to make you stronger in another means. You got to learn from your failure. But sometimes I feel like the failure is what will kick you in the butt and make it happen. And that's, for both of us, that's what happened. And it's, back then we had the biggest change other than our happiness level, because we're really happy with where we're at now. But back then we didn't have like the stress related to finances, because we both had good jobs. And now we both have jobs that are very much based on our success. So, I mean, if I don't cash a check or do well, or, just whatever, get guide trips, I don't generate income. And for her, it's the same way now that she runs her own little chiropractic clinic. If she doesn't generate patients, we don't get paid. So our stress now is all financially related, because it's all based on, it's performance based is really what it comes down to.
Well, and I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to. But it makes me also think back to something that you were talking about that, since you went fishing, part-time to full-time, let's say, that you have found yourself, improving in the rankings, significantly. So what are the things that you did to help yourself improve as a fisherman?
Well, I think a lot of it was just not having the burden of another job. I would be out on the water taking phone calls or checking emails and thinking about that versus being on the water and being in the moment and kind of, figuring out what the stages of we're going, what the stages of the fish were in. I was more worried about my other job. So I think that was a huge factor. The second thing is I was able to get out on the water more. I was a happier person. And I think if you're generally in a better mood, you're going to perform better in whatever it is that you're doing. So it was taking a lot of stress off my plate and allowing me then to spend more time, doing sponsor related stuff, looking at researching bodies of water that tournaments were on, and just working on my own fishing. I fished a lot, but I fish a lot more now, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and for somebody with as much tackle as you seem to have, I imagine you do catch a lot of fish and hit the water a lot. But I have to admire, kind of everything that you have behind you. Because first of all, it's like a whole lot of stuff, but like it looks really well organized.
It's gotta be. With this much stuff, if I don't know where it's at, it's no good to me. Like, yeah, it's pretty well organized. I've got I don't know if you want me to talk. Do you want me to give you a little tour?
Yeah, is that possible?
So the boxes that are over here, I'll turn you a little bit. So this whole case, this is all tournament boxes that come in the boat with me, and I swap them out depending on where I go. That's a bunch of musky baits on top because I do like to musky fish. I've got that's a bunch of rods up top. I don't know how you can see that. And then over here is more just tackle related stuff on the wall. So that way when I when I go to a tournament, I don't have to order everything right off of the internet. If I'm running low, I try to anything that I use a lot of, I try to keep decent stock here, so it's like I can go to my own bait shop per se.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot, but all I'm gonna say is it is my job. So it's like a mechanic's got all the tools in the world. I look at it that same way. I try to have all the tools here so that I can get done what I need to get done. That's what I tell my wife.
Yeah. Certainly not to the extent of what you showed us, because that really is actually so cool. But I think a lot of people can relate to having a lot of tackle and, organizing or reorganizing. I think that's honestly really difficult for some people. So, do you have like a method that works best for you? Or I'm seeing a lot of those clear boxes. Is that your storage method of choice?
Yeah, it is. It is for the boat. I like to have everything labeled. So, I've got all different crankbaits, all different, top water baits are all separated by box. Like I said, a lot. So, that stuff, like we had a tournament. The last tournament was the Mississippi River. So that was all more power fishing stuff. So I had a frog box, chatterbait, swim jigs. The tournament before that was all, finesse fishing. We were over at the St. Lawrence River in New York, so that was more smallmouth fishing. So that was like drop shots and small swim baits and that type of stuff. So it was almost like I took everything out of the boat from St. Lawrence. All those boxes came in here, and then I took all the river stuff and put that in the boat. It works really well for me to keep everything organized, and I can just make quick swap in and swap out. The rest of the stuff down here, you'd mentioned building rods. This is like rod building station here. It's kind of messy with respect to that, but I make a lot of tackle. I do the same. We got long winters here, right? Like we got to do something. So, for me, I don't build much in terms of rods during the season, but I like to have rods built for the season. So that's what I do during the winter is build rods. That's most of what was up here are spare rods ready to roll for when I need them.
So then what is it that you look for in let's say your next rod build? What are you looking for in a rod?
Well, I mean, it really just depends. I mean, at this point, I've kind of got the rods down that I like, but I utilize MHX blanks, which are through mudhole.com. I use mostly the components I use, like the guides and like hook keepers and that are CRB custom rod builder components. I really like to use wind grips. So I use wind grips for reel seats or butt seats and the grips and all that. But yeah, I mean, I've got it down, so all these are different model blanks. So when I build them, let's see if I can show you. So like this is the 874 and 873. You can see I've got all my specs there. So it's like distance for the guides and then all the different component model numbers, so that when I want to build one at this point, I just can put a quick order in knowing exactly what I need and how many components. And that's something that I've been doing a lot of is helping other people build rods too, all over the country. And a lot of that's based on my YouTube stuff. Sorry, I just saw a chicken run by her. We just
Or
had
their dogs barking. It's like
but I do a lot of YouTube stuff kind of talking about building rods. And when people ask me about it, they're like, well, what rod would you use for a drop shot or this? And they're just getting into building. I just take a picture of my build sheet and send it to them. Then they can build the exact rod that I've built.
And then is rod building something that you recommend to somebody who's never done it before?
Rod building is easier than you would think. The problem with rod building is it's really good to have somebody that builds to show you how to build a rod. If you've got somebody who's experienced building rods, it's really easy to build a rod. You just need somebody to show it to you. And you can watch, YouTube videos, and you can watch different rod building material. But for me at least, until you had somebody who could literally show you how to do it, there were a lot of questions. Like you watch a video and you're like, well, what about this? What about that? And there's no answer because it's just a video. If you can do it with somebody who's there, I mean, I just fired questions and they just answered it while they were showing me what they were doing. And so my answer to you is yes, I think it's really easy, and it's easy for people to get into. The hardest part is kind of finding somebody to answer a lot of your questions. But the act of building rods is not that hard. It's a little bit time consuming, but it's not that bad.
Well, and with watching YouTube videos and stuff, that really goes a long way in showing you different techniques and stuff, like when you get stuck places. But I mean, you mentioned Mudhole, and they actually have these really awesome. Is it actually Tuesday nights? It's honestly, I think it's like I think it's honestly right before the show though. But they do have also some really great tips that they do, and you can interact, ask questions and stuff. And so if you're looking to build rods, that's a really great thing.
And I think Matt brings a great point. Oh, yeah. So I was just gonna say Matt brings a great point. Learning from somebody that's done it before. There's a lot of muscle memory that is hard to convey over video. When you're there with somebody, they can have you do it, and then it's easier to remember, because it's hard to explain some of those things like the tie off loops and direction of wraps, and you just kind of have to do it.
It's really rewarding though for anybody who's thinking about it. It is so rewarding to catch a fish on a rod that you built. And the cool thing about it is it's made me much more in tune with the baits that I use. So like there were baits that I never felt were good baits before, but it was because I wasn't using them on the right rod. And once you start building rods, you truly understand the rod action and how the rod is supposed to work and what baits that rod should be used for. So to me, that's the coolest part. And people don't understand that. And people, when you can go buy a rod from most companies now will label a rod as spinnerbait rod. Well, just because they think it's a spinnerbait rod doesn't mean it's necessarily the best rod for you as a spinnerbait rod. So, to be able to build the rod that I mean, I literally build rods for baits, like for the bait that I like to use. But to be able to build it exactly how I want, you know, with the exact grips that I want, with the exact hook keeper that I want, the hook keeper placement. I mean, there's so many little things where I feel like when I used to be purchasing rods, it was like, yeah, this is a great rod, but this one little thing drives me nuts. And now it's like I can build it exactly how I want. And, you know, I feel like they're fantastic rods. That's all I can say. And I will say, you know, I've been building my own rods for it's probably been about 5 years now, 4 years, and I do think that that's been a big factor, like you said, that helped to my overall performance on the water. Except when you break one. When you break one, you feel like crying.
I'm only laughing because this happened to me this year on the boat. The first rod I ever broke, and I was being so delicate trying to put it into our rod locker, but we just have terrible rod storage on our boat, so that was what a bummer.
It hurts. It hurts. There's no warranty with that. I mean, you might be able to get the blank warranted, but you still got to build the whole thing over again.
Yep, it's sitting in the basement right now.
Well, and it's amazing because, you know, some of these, when you're building a rod, there's a choice. You know, you can go and you can take like plain color thread and you can slap that on there, put a little wrap, you know, on your eyes, you're good to go. Then there's people who go and then they like do weaves and they do like really intricate detail.
Lots of artwork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And so, you know, it is really amazing when you have one that you, well, I mean, but even sometimes the plain colored ones you just grow attached to, you know, I mean,
yeah, there are artists out there. I make functional rods. The thread work, I've tried to do some of that thread work, but to me, I think it looks awesome, but it doesn't improve the functionality of it for me. Yeah. So it's not at some point I would love to learn all that, but the times I've tried it, it's been so frustrating that I'm like, I'm not doing this. I'm just doing what I feel comfortable with.
That's true. And with rod building, you get to choose that. And that's what's awesome, actually.
And that's like, as an example, that's one of the things I do. You know, I've got a series of rods, you know, blanks that you can get where it's the same length, same blank. It's just one power stronger. So, you know, it'll be like a 905, a 906, and a 907. And I'll take my thread wrap and I'll go light orange. Those are my swim bait rods. I'll go light orange, like medium orange to dark orange. So I know when I go to grab a rod, I know which one it is, like based on the thread color. And that's one thing I love to do. You know, people look at it and go, why do you got different color handles? Well, it's because I know that a red handle is my topwater rod, and I know a green handle is my frog rod, and a blue one's a flipping stick. So it makes me more efficient on the water. And every little bit of time you can save throughout an 8-hour tournament day, that means I get a couple extra casts, and that potentially could mean that I catch an extra fish. So I've got I'm just crazy when it comes to that stuff, but I feel like that's another little thing I like to do by building my own rods that gives me an advantage over my competition.
Well, and you hear time and time again that to some extent confidence is everything. You know, you go out on the water, you're doubting yourself versus going out and knowing that you're ready for the day. I swear there is something about that mindset that fish react to or something.
100%. I consider it 50% of the fishing game. I've talked about this in some YouTube videos, and I've talked about. I've gotten a meditation coach for a couple of years to work on that whole mindset, because, you know, I call it the demons. You know, you're out on the water and you go to, you know, say you had this great starting spot and you get there and there's a boat fishing it already, or you get there and you don't catch anything. There's a lot of people out there that let those demons that start coming in your head at that point, and it takes them completely out of the game. Like they're done. And that's the mental aspect of tournament fishing is so incredibly underrated in my opinion. I mean, I truly believe it's 50% of the game. And if you can control that and stay in a positive mindset, it'll just make you better throughout the day. I mean, that is a huge aspect in my opinion.
So then when you can have confidence rods and all of that, then do you have confidence baits to go along with that?
Yes, I mean, I do, but it's more based on situation. So, you know, I've got baits that I feel like work in specific situations. And I would say, yes, I have confidence baits, but it's more just a matter of the more familiar you are with a bait, you know how well it works in certain situations. And as much tackle as I have here, I really try to keep it simple from a bait perspective. I try to keep it simple when choosing colors of baits, and I try to keep it simple in terms of using baits that I have confidence in because I know they work and I know how to work them. You know, just because you know, there's 35 different types of walking topwater baits doesn't mean that they all won't work in a situation, but I'd rather throw a bait that I have confidence in. And it's easier if you don't even have one of all 35, it's easier just to keep the bait that you have confidence in. So you only have one choice at that point.
And actually, that's an interesting point. You know, we're talking about all these rods and tackle and all that, and having confidence in them. But, you know, you're the kind of person, or being a tournament angler, you are hitting different water constantly. So, I mean, I guess how is it then possible to build confidence in those different products when maybe you are having to switch so consistently?
It's all based on experience. You have to relate. The more you can relate what's going on in front of you to previous experiences, the better off you're going to be. And that was one of the issues too, I think, with my first couple of years where I was not super successful. I was kind of in the middle of the pack. A lot of that just had to do with the fact that I was a northern guy who had never fished any of the lakes down south. Like I would recommend to any aspiring professional tournament angler to go out and get as much experience as you can on different types of lakes. You know, up north here, we've got more natural lakes, right? Weed-filled lakes. We've got some river fishing, but you don't have the highland impoundments of the Ozarks. You don't have the lowland impoundments of like Alabama. You don't have the Tennessee River lakes, you know, that are ledge fishing. And it took me several years to try to get experience on those bodies of water through those tournaments because I didn't have the time when I was at work to get off to go say, okay, I'm going to go pre-practice Kentucky Lake or, you know, someplace and practice my ledge fishing. I had never ledge fished before. You know, I got to Kentucky Lake and I'm like, I think this is how I do it, but I don't really know. So you just got to, you know, at this point for me, I still don't really pre-practice that much, but I've been doing it long enough and I have enough experience on similar types of water to know roughly what I need to be doing.
And then, you know, being that you do go to so many different bodies of water and rivers and lakes and all of that, I mean, as far as, well, I guess personal preference, do you like largies or smallies best?
Oof. I mean, if I had my choice, I'd have to go smallmouth. Like I love smallmouth, but there are definitely types of largemouth fishing that can't be beat. You know, give me a big flipping stick and punch some milfoil and some thick weed. Like I love that. Like I think that's a blast.
Yeah, that's for sure. So, and then are you targeting those two different species differently?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, yes. I mean, if you're fishing the Mississippi River or the Wisconsin River or the Wolf River, you can catch a lot of both species doing the same thing. But you know, for the most part, if you're chasing smallmouth, you're going to be more on, you know, a deep body of water, clear body up north somewhere like the Great Lakes. And the largemouth, we could be anywhere, but normally they don't set up in the same places. So you are targeting a different species in different locations. It's great from a tournament perspective. If you have an area where you can catch both, on back-to-back casts. I love that because then you've got the best of both worlds. But it doesn't happen that much.
And then, there's tons of people who go out and like to, bass fish. And I think especially with the evolution of online tournaments and stuff, there's people who continue to seek bigger and bigger fish. So is there a way to target big bass versus maybe the rest of them?
Yeah. The obvious way is to throw bigger baits, big glide baits, big swim baits. For somebody who truly is targeting, say, the biggest fish in their lake, that's what I would recommend. Grab a big glide bait and go fish your lake, and you will see the potential of what's in that lake. A lot of times they won't actually commit to your bait, but they'll chase your bait, and it's it's eye-opening sometimes. And it doesn't matter where you're at in the country. Up north here, down south, you pick up a big 8 or 10 inch glide bait, and you'll see some amazing fish that frustrates you because you're not catching them. But that's in my opinion, the best way to target just big fish. But other than that, if you're up here in the North Country, I think you're looking for like deeper weeds, thick stuff. Jig is a great bait. You're not going to find as many fish, in my opinion, say just cruising down the bank in the summer months. In the spring, absolutely. In the fall, sure. But this time of year, you want to be looking a little bit offshore to find the biggest fish in the lake.
Well, and I do also like hearing about you saying, upsize your bait, because that sounds so simple. But I think of myself, and I'm kind of more of a crappie angler. And so I know that's obviously different. But, so often I myself will upsize to try to get a bigger crappie. But then all of a sudden it always happens every year, sometimes a bunch of times on Facebook or whatever. And people will be like, oh, I was out bass fishing. I caught like 16-inch crappie, 18-inch crappie. You hear these stories of like even bigger than that, and it's like you used what? It's like, I thought I did upsize, and so yeah. I like hearing about you saying, even go beyond what they'll eat, because you never know what'll chase it, and quite frankly, you'll never know what you'll catch.
You see pictures on the internet a lot of times of fish that ate another fish of roughly the similar size, but they end up dying because they're like locked together. Yeah. They're predatory species, and if they get an opportunity to eat something, they might try. I think for the most part, 90% of anglers don't go big enough. But to counter that, I do think you get more bites, which ups your odds of catching a big fish by going smaller. So it kind of works both ways. I'm a huge fan of throwing what I term micro baits, which you guys would basically say are just crappie baits. But if you're looking to catch numbers of fish, and from a guiding perspective, I love throwing the small baits because you may catch a crappie or a perch or something mixed in. So, if you're just trying to put your clients on fish, it's a great way to do it. But I always just say it's, if somebody put a bowl of M&Ms in front of me, I may not eat the whole bowl, but I'm going to have one or two just because it's a little tiny snack. So I always feel that same way with fish. You put something small in front of them, they're like, I'm not hungry, but I'll eat it.
Oh my gosh, I'm laughing because honestly, it's amazing how many of the different, fishing professionals that we talk about or talk to on the Striker Show. Yeah. This comes up all the time. And so I love that this always comes up. I swear to you people at home, we do not practice this before the show. Oh my gosh. But I totally agree with you. Because, something little and delicious floats by, and, fish are, opportunistic. We're talking about them being defensive of where they're at, or, their space, or, maybe even just interested. But I think sometimes it just fish eat. I don't know. That's awesome. So then I've got to ask, we're talking all kinds of open water, but you live in Wisconsin. Do you ice fish also?
No, no, I don't. I have.
That was a big eye roll.
I have 3 tip-ups, and they're still in the box, but they are rigged. I've used them once. I like to go with a group of people and fish. I usually go once or twice a year with a group of guys, and it's just a hangout session with people I don't see. But I really don't. I would get into it. The thing is, this is the same answer I have for hunting. I don't hunt at all, but it's because I love to fish all the way until ice up. The best fishing of the year is like all the way up to ice up. So in this part of the country, you're talking Thanksgiving-ish, somewhere in there. Well, then you got a month full of holidays, and my tournament season starts usually in January. So like that's when I go into, I got to get the boat rigged, boat wrapped, to get everything ready to go for my season. So, and at that point, once the season starts in January, I'm gone for a week or so, home for a couple weeks, gone for a week. So I don't really, I guess I could do it when I'm home, but it's just something that I don't really ever need to get into because I'm so busy with fishing still at that point.
With fishing, I'm so busy with fishing, as if it was not, ice fishing is not fishing.
Well, you guys know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
To all the ice fishermen out there, I think it's great. It's a fun time. I just don't have any of my own stuff. I have no place to put it. I can't get into it.
That's
I'm
okay.
just saying,
it sounds
like you're breaking up with ice fishing. So we understand. No, it's okay. I'm kidding. I'm just giving you a hard time. I do have to ask then, though, does that mean all of your favorite striker gear is summer gear?
No, heck no. We still live in Wisconsin. It's like the frozen tundra. I love all the stuff that they make. I mean, I've got so much cold weather gear that, I mean, it's ridiculous. And half the time, I mean, just because I'm down in Texas in January doesn't mean it's 70 degrees. Half the time it's like 45, and you're getting in the boat and you got frost on the boat. So I half my tournament season, I'm using more of the striker ice stuff than I am, the warm weather gear for sure.
So are you wearing actually, like, what ice suit do you like then?
Well, I've got a bunch. I believe it's the Predator. I've got, that, and then I've got the Denali and the Adrenaline suit, which are kind of allow me to go the full gamut. But I mean, I like it, just a lot of their basic clothing as well, like the fleeces and stuff like that. Like it's so nice because it's fashionable where you can wear it out, but at the same time it's functional where if you're on the ice, it's like the best stuff you can utilize. So, the wool socks are awesome. I mean, I've got pretty much, if you see me all winter, I'm wearing some sort of striker ice stuff, and all summer I'm wearing the summer gear too now.
Yeah, that's for sure. Man, I imagine that the Predator is a really great suit on the boat, meant to be super flexible, super mobile for ice season, for people who are walking around doing hole hopping. But those same qualities would make it extra comfortable for, sitting in the boat and moving around, or, kneeling to release a fish. It has those padded knees. So actually a really, really great crossover there. I do actually also, it makes me think of the new suit that's out this year. The Apex. There you go. And we actually just got to see it.
Yeah. On our 1,000-mile tour.
I've seen pictures. I have not seen it in person yet.
So a quick little story. We're heading west to Minnesota, and we're like, well, why don't we just stop? It's Friday. We never travel during a Friday because usually one of us has to work. But we both took a Friday off, and we're like, oh, everybody should be in. So we peeled off the highway and went north. Showed up, and there was 2 people there. It was Megan at the front desk. Matt walked us around. We got to talk with Barry a lot.
Saw Jeannie.
That
was awesome.
But we were sitting there talking with them, and we're like, hey, can we go look at your studio room? And they're like, well, haven't you ever been here before? We're like, no, we haven't been here before. Yeah, we got to go see all the new stuff hanging up in their cool shoot room, and it's a pretty cool suit, I'll tell you what.
Well, and the reason I brought that up in the first place, though, is I'm thinking of, somebody with that boat application, because it is that super, super warm. But then it is actually, lighter and a little bit thinner than most of the other suits out there. So, and they also said a little bit more of the waterproof, because certainly all of the ice suits are waterproof, but I'm not talking like boat waterproof. I'm talking like, you can like kneel in slush and all of that, and you're great. You're good to go. But I think that the new Apex suit will be a perfect fit for those super cold boat days.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited to see it. Hopefully I can get my hands on one at some point.
You and the rest of us.
Yeah.
That is for sure. And then actually, I got to also ask you about this. It's not all the time that you run into somebody who is, a major league fisher that also is a guide. So you actually do offer, time out in the boat with you.
Yeah, it's I do probably 15 trips a year. It's one of those things that I really like to do more of a specialty guide trip, meaning like somebody calls me up and says, hey, we just bought a house on this lake. I have no idea where to start. Can you help point me in the right direction and figure out how to break a lake down? That's what I really love to do. I do, get a bunch of guide trips that are just like, hey, I'm up in the Stevens Point area. Can you take us out for the day? So I kind of do a little bit of everything. I try to do more of them in this, what I consider the second half of the year, when it's not falling inside of the tournament season, just because it's hard to schedule a lot of that stuff when I don't even know if I'm going to be out of town or not. And to mix in the fact that I don't even have my schedule really for a lot of what I'm fishing next year until later in the year. So a lot of my guide trips are done like this time of year up into the fall.
And that's definitely a great time to be out fishing because, man, there's a great bite up to come.
Yeah.
With that, you are doing a whole bunch of stuff with, YouTube and all of that. So for people who are looking to follow you, how do they go about that?
Well, the YouTube thing is where I'm putting the majority of my effort right now. I do short, like 5 to 8 minute videos that come out on a daily basis, and they're all geared towards trying to help people catch a few extra fish. So new techniques, ways I do things, pro tips, things I pick up along the way that a lot of the general fishing public aren't aware of. So I've definitely spilled the juice on some things that I've had some buddies of mine not be happy with me over, but it's one of those things where if I can help somebody catch a couple extra fish, it really makes it worthwhile. And the feedback I've gotten has been absolutely phenomenal, where people are telling me they've, went out and tried something and it's like changed their fishing life, or they've caught a new PB or something like that. So it's really, really rewarding to do it. So that's Matt Stefan. It's Matt Stefan Fishing on everything. Matt Stefan Fishing on YouTube, Matt Stefan Fishing, Instagram, Facebook. I think it's Stefan Fishing on Twitter, but yeah. So if people want to follow me, that's how to do it. And yeah, I mean, it's part of the game. I mean, I got to tell you, honestly, like, I'm not a social media guy, but it's something that I realize as a professional fisherman, that's part of the game at this point. That's how you market yourself. So I've definitely tried to get into that, the YouTube thing. The thing that's really rewarding about YouTube, other than having that kind of that direct connection with the viewer, is that it's so much easier to promote product. And I don't mean that from a sales pitch perspective, but I'm saying it more like, I could put a picture up on Facebook or Instagram and say, guys, I was out fishing today, catching them on this bait. Well, that all sounds fine and dandy, but it comes across more as a sales pitch in that manner versus me putting together a 5 or 8 or 10 minute video showing you how to use it, going out catching fish, to show you that it actually does work, and being able then to kind of have discussion through the comment section on any of the questions that they have. So I mean, it's not necessarily a sales pitch. It's me saying like, this actually works and you can see me use it versus some of the other social media platforms. So I'm late to the game, but I'm really enjoying the YouTube thing a heck of a lot more than I've ever enjoyed the other social media platforms.
Well, and I would not say that you're late to the game when you're putting out media once a day. That's wow. I mean, that is really, really super cool. I mean, as a media creator, I mean, that takes a lot of work on your part. But as somebody who watches media also, I mean, to have consistent content like that, that is actually a really awesome thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm gonna stress, I'm going for quality in terms of information value over like the effects, right? I mean, you're not going to see explosions and cool stuff going on. I mean, it's pretty raw footage, but it's to me, as long as the information is valuable, like that really can kind of overcome the low quality video aspect of it, right? I mean, you're not going to see, like I said, there's not drone footage or any cool stuff like that. It's pretty much, guys, this is how to do this. Give it a try, that type of thing.
Well, and I think some of that is super relatable because, you know, people are out there just actually trying these things. And, you know, speaking of relatable, I have to kind of laugh because even all the way to your Facebook, you were even just posting pictures not long ago that your 3-year-old helped decorate your boat with like stickers and stuff everywhere. You know, so like a whole bunch of, you know, all the way, everything from super quality tips to, you know, funny little moments of things that happen around you. So.
Yeah, my little boys are both man, they're head over heels for the sport. And as much as I think that's awesome, it almost worries me a little bit. Like I don't want to force them into the sport at all. In fact, when it comes to like chasing the professional fishing career, I would probably want to steer them away from it because it's just, if you don't have the passion for it, it's really difficult with the passion, but it's really difficult without the passion. And not only is it, you know, it's like starting a business. You can go into debt pretty quick if you don't do well at it. You know, it's not like, okay, I'm going to go try a job and I get paid, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. In this case, I mean, the expenses to fish are ridiculous. I mean, as you guys are aware, it's not a cheap sport to get into. So, you know, I love the fact that my kids love to be outdoors and love to fish and, you know, be around me when I'm getting the boat ready and that type of thing. But it scares me a little bit too that that's all they're going to want to do, because I think, you know, I don't want to force them into it, I guess is what I'm saying. But it was funny when I found little stickers. I'm wiping the boat down for the championship, and I'm like, I got little, I think one was a monkey and one was a giraffe, I think, stuck on my Wisconsin registration sticker. I was like, okay, well, little Duke put that on there.
That is awesome. Oh my goodness. So I guess, you know, with that, I feel like we could talk all night, but we're almost at the end here. So thanks for being with us.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. I love doing this type of thing. It's this was a blast and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll have you on again sometime, I'm sure.
Awesome.
And to the people at home, thank you guys for joining us as well. It's always a ton of fun to, you know, be able to share the evening with you guys. And it's always a great time. So thanks for joining us on this week's episode of Hook, Line, and Striker.
Night, everybody.